Before we begin tonight's story, please take a moment to subscribe and turn on notifications. Your support helps us bring more heartfelt stories to life. Tonight, we share a tale about memory, gratitude, and the invisible threads that connect us to the places we've loved. This is a story about coming home. Now, let's begin. The snow fell in Havenbrook the way it always did in late December, silent, relentless, and forgiving. It covered the cracks in the sidewalk, the rust on old lampposts, the weariness of a town that had seen better decades. Inside the Silver Spoon diner, the neon sign flickered rhythmically, casting pink and blue shadows across the empty booths. It was 8:15 on a Tuesday evening, and the dinner rush had never arrived. 3 travelers sat scattered throughout the dining room, nursing lukewarm coffee and scrolling through their phones. Emma wiped down the counter for the 3rd time that hour. At 24, she'd been working at the diner for 6 years, longer than she'd planned, shorter than she'd probably stay. She'd learned to read loneliness in the way people ordered their food. When the door chimed, a brutal gust of wind swept through the entrance, scattering napkins and making the other customers shiver. And then he appeared. An old man, thin as a winter branch, stood in the doorway. His wool coat hung from his shoulders like a draped blanket, too large for his frame. His knitted hat was soaked through melting snow, dripping down the sides of his weathered face. But it was his eyes that caught Emma's attention, pale blue, distant, as if he were looking not at the diner, but through it, into some other time. "Evening, sir," Emma said warmly, grabbing a menu. "Cold night to be out walking. Can I get you a table?" The old man stepped forward slowly, his movements careful and deliberate. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Just something warm, please. A bowl of soup. Whatever's cheapest." Emma's smile faltered for just a moment. She'd heard those words before from people counting change in their pockets, from travelers stretching their last dollars across state lines. "Right this way," she said, gently, leading him to the booth nearest the old radiator. "That heater's the warmest spot in the house." He lowered himself into the seat with a quiet sigh, as if sitting down were itself a kind of relief. He pressed his palms together, rubbing them slowly, and Emma noticed his hands trembling not just from the cold. "I'll be right back with some water," she said. As she walked away, she glanced back once. The old man was staring up at the ceiling, at the exposed wooden beams overhead, his expression unreadable. When Emma returned with the menu and a glass of water, the old man gently pushed the menu back toward her without opening it. "I already know," he said quietly. "The tomato soup. That'll be enough." Emma hesitated, pen hovering over her notepad. "It comes with a roll and butter. Would you?" "No, thank you." His voice was kind, but firm. "Just the soup. I want to taste something warm. Something that reminds me of her." Emma didn't ask who her was. She didn't need to. "I'll get that started for you," she said softly. In the kitchen, she found Marcus, the cook, flipping burgers with the practiced disinterest of someone who'd done it 10,000 times. "1 tomato soup," Emma said. "And Marcus, make it a double portion." "On me." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You paying for customers again?" "Just do it." He shrugged and ladled out a generous serving, grumbling under his breath but secretly understanding. At the counter, the owner, Harold Reynolds, stood watching the old man through the pass-through window. Harold was in his 60s, a man who'd bought the diner 30 years ago, and had watched Havenbrook shrink around it. He prided himself on remembering faces. "Emma," he called quietly. "That man. I swear I've seen him before." Emma glanced over. "Maybe he's been in before?" "No. It's something else." Harold frowned, squinting. "Something older." When Emma brought the soup, the old man looked up at her with such gratitude that she felt her throat tighten. "Thank you," he whispered. "You have no idea what this means." She watched as he lifted the first spoonful to his lips. He closed his eyes, and for a moment she could swear she saw a tear slip down his cheek. He ate slowly, not because the soup was hot, but because he was savoring it. Each spoonful seemed to carry a memory, a moment, a life he was tasting one last time. When the bowl was empty, the old man didn't ask for the check. He simply sat, staring across the room at something on the far wall. Emma followed his gaze. It was an old photograph, framed in faded wood, a black and white image of the diner under construction. Men in hard hats stood on scaffolding, smiling at the camera. The wooden frame of the building was bare, the walls unfinished. Beneath the photo, a small brass plaque. Read Silver Spoon Diner Grand Opening, 1975. That picture, the old man murmured. I haven't seen it in so long. Emma approached slowly. Do you know someone in it? The old man smiled faintly. I know all of them. I hired most of them. Harold, who'd been listening from behind the counter, stepped forward. What do you mean? The old man turned to face him, his expression calm but heavy with memory. 50 years ago, he said, I was 26 years old. Fresh out of architecture school, full of dreams, and terrified I'd fail. This diner was my first real project. A local investor wanted something small, practical, and cheap. But I wanted to build something more. He paused, his eyes drifting back to the beams overhead. I designed it to feel like a home. I wanted the ceiling high enough to breathe, but low enough to feel safe. I wanted the booths to face each other, so strangers might talk. I wanted the kitchen open, so people could hear laughter and smell bread baking. I wanted it to be a place where people felt less alone. The diner had gone completely silent. Even the hum of the refrigerator seemed to quiet. My name is Arthur Brennan, the old man continued. And tomorrow morning, I'm moving into an assisted living facility 2 hours south. Tonight was my last chance to come back here. To see if the place I built, if it still felt alive. Harold stood frozen, his mouth slightly open. Emma's hand covered her lips. You built this? Harold whispered. Arthur nodded. I built it with my wife, Margaret, by my side. She picked the color of the booths. She chose the name. She believed in me when no one else did. His voice cracked. She passed 3 years ago. And I've been alone ever since. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Tonight, Arthur said quietly, I just wanted to sit here one last time. To remember what it felt like when life was full of hope. To taste something warm. To feel like I mattered. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Harold Reynolds walked to the front door, flipped the sign to closed, and locked it. Sir, he said, his voice steady and firm, if this diner exists because of you, then you're not a customer. You're family. Arthur looked up, startled. Harold turned to Marcus. Cook, fire up everything. I want the full menu. Marcus blinked. Everything? Everything. Emma was already moving, grabbing fresh coffee, setting a full-place setting at the largest booth. Harold slid into the seat across from Arthur, and Marcus emerged from the kitchen carrying plates: meatloaf, mashed potatoes, roasted vegetables, warm rolls with butter. Tonight, Harold said, you're not eating alone. One by one, the staff gathered. Even the 3 remaining customers, sensing something sacred, quietly joined the circle. They ate together. They asked Arthur about the diner's construction, about Margaret, about the dreams he had when he was young. Arthur spoke softly, but his words filled the room like light. He told them about the day the diner opened, how Margaret wore a yellow dress and handed out free coffee to everyone who walked by. He told them about the beam above the kitchen that he'd carved their initials into. He told them about the night they closed up late, dancing to the jukebox when they thought no one was watching. And as he spoke, the diner transformed. It was no longer just a place. It was a memory made of wood and warmth. Emma refilled his coffee 3 times. Marcus brought out a slice of homemade pie. Harold pulled out an old photo album from the storage room, showing Arthur pictures of the diner through the decades: Christmases, anniversaries, proposals. "You didn't just build walls," Harold said quietly. "You built a home. And you gave it to all of us." Arthur's eyes shone. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for keeping it alive." At 10:30, Arthur finally stood to leave. Emma walked him to the door, bundling his coat tighter around him. Outside, the snow had stopped, and the street glowed under the soft light of the street lamps. "Thank you," Arthur said, his voice breaking. "For the soup. For the meal. For reminding me that I didn't waste my life." Emma's tears spilled over. "You didn't waste anything, Mr. Brennan. You gave us something beautiful." He squeezed her hand gently. "Come visit me sometime. If you ever want to hear more stories." "I will," she promised. Arthur smiled, then stepped out into the cold. Emma and Harold watched through the window as he walked slowly down the street, his figure growing smaller and smaller until he disappeared into the night. Harold turned to Emma, his jaw set. "Get me a drill and a brass plaque." "What?" "This booth," Harold said, tapping the table where Arthur had sat. "It's his. Forever." The next morning, a small brass plaque was mounted on the wall beside the booth. "The architect's table. Reserved in gratitude for Arthur Brennan, who built not just a diner, but a home." From that day forward, no one sat there unless they truly needed it: the lonely, the lost, the travelers far from home. And on cold winter nights, when the snow fell and the neon sign flickered, the staff would tell the story of the man who came for soup. And reminded everyone what love can build. Thank you for listening. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, kindness is never wasted. It builds homes we can't always see.